You just bought a winter coat for $8, wireless earbuds for $3, and a phone case for 47 cents. Shipping? Free. And somehow, it all arrives at your door in less than 2 weeks from the other side of the planet. Your first thought is probably, this has to be a scam. Your second thought, who cares? It's 47 cents. But here's the thing that should really blow your mind. Temu isn't just selling you cheap stuff, they're making billions doing it. In 2023, Temu generated over $14 billion in revenue. That's more than many traditional retailers that have been around for decades. And they did it in less than 2 years. So how does an app that sells products cheaper than a cup of coffee actually turn a profit? The answer is way more fascinating than you think, and it reveals a business model that's quietly reshaping how we shop. Hi, and welcome to the channel where I analyze financial reports, so you don't have to. Today we're diving into Temu, the shopping app that's everywhere. And to understand how they make money, we're going to follow our good friend Mike on his Temu shopping journey and calculate every single dollar along the way. Because Temu is owned by PDD Holdings, a Chinese company also behind Pinduoduo, we actually have real numbers to work with, and trust me, they tell a wild story. Let's start with Mike. He's scrolling through his phone late at night, probably avoiding sleep like a responsible adult, when he sees it. A Temu ad. Actually, no. He sees 47 Temu ads. Because if there's one thing Temu has mastered, it's making sure you cannot escape them. Temu spends an absolutely insane amount on marketing. In 2023 alone, they burned through roughly $3 billion on advertising. That's about $6.50 per order. To put that in perspective, Amazon spends about $1.50 per order on marketing. Temu is spending more than 4 times that amount. They bought Super Bowl ads, sponsored major sports events, and basically carpet-bombed every social media platform with promotions. Their strategy is simple but expensive. Get into your brain and stay there. Shop like a billionaire. Spend like a millionaire. Whatever that means, it works. The app has been downloaded over 500 million times. But here's where it gets interesting. Temu doesn't just want Mike to download the app, they want him addicted. So they gamify everything. Spin the wheel, get a coupon, invite 3 friends, get $20 off, complete daily tasks, earn credits. It's like a mobile game, except instead of leveling up a character, you're leveling up your shopping addiction. And it works. Mike is now hooked. He didn't even need a phone case, but for 47 cents, how could he not? So Mike places his order. 3 items. Total cost, $11.47. Shipping is free, which seems physically impossible, but we'll get to that. For Temu, this sale means they're collecting about $9.89 after payment processing fees. Now comes the fascinating part. Temu doesn't actually own any of this stuff. They don't have warehouses full of phone cases and wireless earbuds. Temu is basically just a middleman connecting Mike to Chinese manufacturers. It's a marketplace model, kind of like Amazon, except way more aggressive about costs. When Mike clicks buy, Temu forwards the order directly to a factory somewhere in China. That factory then ships the product directly to Mike. Temu never touches it. They're just the platform making the connection. And for this service, Temu takes a commission, typically around 5 to 20% depending on the product category. Let's say on Mike's $11.47 order, Temu takes a 15% cut. That's about $1.72. Wait, that doesn't sound like much. And you're absolutely right, because that $1.72 commission is exactly where Temu's first big problem shows up. Remember, Temu just spent $6.50 on marketing to get Mike to place this order. They collected $1.72 in commission. That means they're already $4.78 in the hole. And we haven't even talked about the other costs yet. Running an app isn't free. Temu has to pay for servers, technology, software development, and customer service. Those costs add up to roughly $2.30 per order. So now Temu is $7.08 in the red on Mike's purchase. And there's still more. Payment processing fees take another 3% or about 34 cents. That brings the total loss to $7.42 per order. But wait, didn't I say shipping was free? Well, free for Mike, not free for Temu. Here's where things get really interesting. Shipping a small package from China to the US would normally cost $15 to $25. That would instantly kill Temu's entire business model. But Temu figured out a loophole that's equal parts genius and controversial. It's called the de minimis exemption. In the US, any package worth less than $800 doesn't have to go through customs and doesn't get charged import duties. This rule was designed to make life easier for people receiving small personal gifts from abroad. Temu turned it into a business model by shipping items individually and keeping each order under $800, which, let's be honest, is pretty easy when you're selling phone cases for 47 cents. Temu avoids tariffs completely, but there's more. China Post, the Chinese postal service, has an agreement with the US Postal Service that was established to promote international mail exchange. Because of this deal, shipping from China to the US is subsidized. That's right, the cost is artificially low, not because Temu has some magical logistics network, but because of international postal agreements that were never designed for commercial e-commerce at this scale. Thanks to these two factors, Temu pays roughly $3.50 to $5 per package instead of $20. For Mike's order, let's say shipping costs Temu $4. That means Temu is now $11.42 in the red. Mike paid $11.47 for his items. Temu's total costs so far are $22.89. That's a loss of $11.42 on a single order. So how on earth does Temu make money? The answer is they don't. Not yet. Anyway, Temu is running a classic Silicon Valley playbook. Lose money on every sale, but make it up in volume. Wait, that doesn't make sense. Exactly. The real goal isn't profitability right now, it's market dominance. Temu is bleeding cash to acquire customers, build brand recognition, and grow as fast as humanly possible. PDD Holdings, Temu's parent company, has deep pockets. They're worth over $100 billion, and they're willing to fund losses for years if it means owning the market. The bet is simple. Get hundreds of millions of people using Temu. Get them hooked on ultra-cheap prices. And then, once you have them locked in, slowly raise prices, reduce discounts, or cut back on marketing spending. But here's the thing. This strategy only works if Temu can actually become profitable later. So let's talk about how they plan to do that, because the business model is a lot smarter than it looks on the surface. First, let's talk about the manufacturers. Temu has completely flipped the power dynamic. Normally, a seller has some control. They set prices, manage inventory, decide which products to push. On Temu, manufacturers have almost zero power. Temu dictates the prices. Temu decides which products get promoted. Temu controls everything. And if a manufacturer doesn't like it, there are 10,000 other factories waiting to take their place. This gives Temu insane negotiating leverage. They can squeeze margins to almost nothing because manufacturers are desperate for volume. China has massive overcapacity. Factories are producing way more goods than the domestic market can absorb. Temu offers them a way to move inventory, even if the margins are razor thin. For manufacturers, selling on Temu might only bring a tiny profit per unit, but it's better than having goods sit in a warehouse. Some manufacturers even sell at a loss just to keep production lines running. Temu doesn't care. They'll take the inventory and sell it for whatever price moves volume. This is why you can buy a phone case for 47 cents. It's not because Temu found some magic supplier. It's because the manufacturer is desperate and Temu has all the leverage. Second, Temu has almost no inventory risk. Traditional retailers like Walmart or Target have to buy products up front, store them in warehouses, and hope they sell. If they don't, that's a loss. Temu never buys anything. The manufacturer holds the inventory. If it doesn't sell, that's the manufacturer's problem, not Temu's. This makes Temu's business model incredibly capital efficient. They're not tying up billions in unsold goods. They're just a platform connecting buyers to sellers. Third, Temu is building a data goldmine. Every time Mike browses, clicks, or buys something, Temu collects that data. They know what products are trending, which prices convert best, and exactly what Mike is most likely to buy next. This data is incredibly valuable. Temu uses it to optimize everything, which products to promote, how to price them, what ads to show. But they can also sell this data back to manufacturers. Hey, Mr. Factory Owner, want to know exactly what American consumers are buying right now? That'll cost you. This data play is huge, and it's one of the ways Temu plans to become profitable without raising prices. Fourth, and this is the sneaky one, Temu is training you to expect cheap prices now so they can change the game later. Right now, Temu is subsidizing your shopping habit. They're taking losses on purpose. But once they have market share, once millions of people have Temu as their default shopping app, the strategy shifts. Prices will creep up, not dramatically, but slowly. A phone case that cost 47 cents might become 97 cents. Shipping might not always be free. Maybe you'll need to spend $15 to get free shipping instead of $10. These small changes won't feel like much individually, but across millions of orders, they add up to billions in extra revenue. And by then, Mike is already in the habit of checking Temu first for everything. That's the real prize, changing your behavior. Once that's locked in, Temu can start optimizing for profit instead of growth. Now let's talk about something Temu really doesn't want you thinking about: quality control, or the lack of it. Because Temu is a marketplace, they're not technically responsible for the quality of the products. If Mike's $3 wireless earbuds break after a week, that's between Mike and the seller. Sure, Temu has a return policy, but good luck actually using it. Returns are a nightmare. You have to ship the item back to China at your own cost, which often costs more than the item itself, so most people just don't bother. They eat the loss and move on. Temu knows this. They're counting on it. The business model only works if most people accept that some items will be garbage. Temu is selling volume, not quality. For every 10 items you buy, maybe 3 are decent, 5 are mediocre, and 2 are complete junk. But because everything is so cheap, you don't really care, you just keep buying. And that's the beauty of the model from Temu's perspective. Low expectations mean low costs. Let's talk about labor, because Temu's ultra-cheap prices are also possible because of how factories in China operate. Workers are paid very little. Labor protections are minimal. Factories run on tight margins and even tighter schedules. This isn't unique to Temu, of course. Plenty of Western brands rely on the same supply chains. But Temu takes it to another level by pushing prices so low that manufacturers have no choice but to cut every possible corner. There's been reporting on factories working with Temu where employees are doing 12-hour shifts for wages that wouldn't be legal in most Western countries. Again, Temu doesn't employ these people directly. They're just the platform. But the model depends on this cheap labor. Without it, those 47-cent phone cases wouldn't exist. Now let's get back to Mike. His order arrives 2 weeks later. The phone case is fine. The earbuds are shockingly decent for $3. The coat, well, it's not going to survive a real winter, but it looks okay. Mike is happy enough. He'll probably order again. And that's what Temu is counting on. Not that every product is amazing, but that the dopamine hit of getting cheap stuff outweighs the occasional disappointment. Temu has studied the psychology of shopping, and they've built an app that exploits every trick in the book. Bright colors, countdown timers, flash sales, limited stock warnings, gamification. It's designed to keep you engaged and buying. Some people call it addictive. Temu calls it good user experience. So where does all this leave Temu financially? Right now, they're losing money on most orders. PDD Holdings reported that Temu's operating margin is deeply negative. They're burning billions to grow, but PDD is profitable overall thanks to Pinduoduo, their Chinese platform, so they can afford to fund Temu's expansion. The goal is to reach a tipping point, get enough scale that the unit economics flip. Eventually, with hundreds of millions of active users, even tiny improvements in efficiency or small price increases create massive profit. Temu is betting that they can get there before they run out of patience or money. It's a risky bet, but it's not unprecedented. Amazon lost money for years. Uber burned billions. The question is whether Temu can actually execute the transition from growth at all costs to sustainable profitability. There's also the regulatory risk. Governments are starting to notice Temu. The de minimis loophole that allows Temu to avoid tariffs? Politicians are talking about closing it. If that happens, Temu's cost would skyrocket overnight. Shipping would become way more expensive. Prices would have to go up. That could kill the entire model. There are also concerns about product safety. Because Temu products bypass normal customs inspections, there's less oversight. Some items have been found to contain unsafe materials or violate safety standards. If regulators crack down, Temu could face big fines or restrictions. Then, there's the intellectual property issue. Temu's marketplace is flooded with knockoffs. Fake branded goods, copied designs, trademark violations. Major brands are already suing. If Temu gets hit with serious legal consequences, that's another cost they'll have to absorb. But let's say Temu survives all of that. Let's say they successfully navigate regulations, build a loyal customer base, and eventually raise prices just enough to become profitable without losing too many customers. What does that world look like? Probably one where shopping is even more dominated by a handful of giant platforms. Temu isn't trying to be a niche player. They want to be the everything store for budget-conscious shoppers. And if they succeed, traditional retailers are in trouble. Why would Mike drive to a store or even visit Amazon when he can scroll Temu and buy the same stuff for half the price? This is the future Temu is building, one where ultra-cheap, direct from factory, heavily subsidized shopping becomes the norm. So back to the original question, how does Temu make money? Right now, they mostly don't. They're losing billions to build market share. But the plan is clear. Dominate the market with impossibly low prices, lock in customers, squeeze suppliers, collect data, then slowly adjust the economics until the model becomes profitable. It's aggressive, it's risky, and it's working. Temu is one of the fastest growing e-commerce platforms in history. Whether they can actually turn that growth into long-term profits remains to be seen. But one thing is certain, that 47-cent phone case Mike bought isn't just a cheap product. It's a piece of a massive, calculated bet on the future of shopping. And every time you click buy, you're helping Temu inch closer to making that bet pay off. Or maybe you're just helping them burn through another few billion while you score a great deal on wireless earbuds. Either way, it's one heck of a business model.